As we are setting up, guys, it's pretty exciting to be here. Hopefully, everybody can hear me clearly. As Ina said, definitely this is a step. We are, moving in a different direction, but in the positive direction. So definitely, there'll be as soon as I can. Okay, yeah, there we go. So as soon as I can see this, okay, cool. So we have, as Ina said, we have kind of a lighter presentation, but more, this is more like we'll have a dialogue and talk through everything. I'm Tom Anthony. I am a consultant. I also am the CEO for our company. We do automation. And that's like my day job. And I also help with, some assignments of consulting and so on and so forth. Again, part of me, I've been, I would say, a lifelong learner looking at things. And when Ina and I were speaking, she said, hey, there are some things in our experiences we can share. So that's how this whole idea germinated. And I said, why not we try it? And this is where we are right now. And thank you all for joining us, where we want to just share our experiences in the field, right? Now, this experiences are stuff we have done. Definitely, these experiences something we can definitely use on an everyday basis going forward, right? Now, the point also being that today the change is happening at a much faster pace, and managing the change is not easy. But so these are some of the nuggets or some of the experiences we have had. We will share to help manage the change as we all are going through this. With that, Ina, anything in particular you want to add?
Yes, I just wanted to add how Tom and I actually met. We've met about a year ago here at my lunch and learn sessions. I was presented either on my own or with other guys, and I think Tom joined a few of them. And every time he asked questions, and his questions were really profound. So I noticed him right away, and then we started talking after the lunch and learned, and a year later we are doing this event together. We would do it much sooner, probably, but I had to pause my Agile events due to the other commitment, like full-time contract and also the CMO community. So when CEO community is finally on rails, I can come back to Agile. And today is, by the way, the first event of 2024 for us. So congratulations. And
likewise.
before we move to the meat of the presentation, which is talking about the change and the transformation, Tom, when I ask you to send the picture, you send me the picture with a medal from your marathon. And I assume there is a story behind that. Am I right?
That definitely is. That definitely is. And again, the reason I picked the picture, since we're talking of change management, transformation, this was, again, I have run one marathon. I've done about 15 and a halves, and I do a lot of other running. This is the New York TCS Marathon, which I was supposed to run in 2020, and then COVID happened. And then, of course, this happened in 2021. And the reason I picked this picture is because to do the endeavor of running a marathon, that is preparation, that is planning, that is risk management, that's risk mitigation, that is adaptable, agile thinking, right? So all of that came into that race, and especially the race, since I was running in 2020, it moved to 2021. I was not as physically fit because 1 year makes a big difference. I had to adapt my strategy mid-race. My whole goal, I had to change my goal mid-race. So that's why I picked this picture, because it's in a way talking about change, adaptation, and so on and so forth. So that's the story, why I picked the picture.
Thank you very much, Tom. And that is a very exciting topic because before I moved to Canada, I wasn't physically fit at all, and I'm still not physically fit at all. But if any one of you been to Canada, like Canadians, they really like sports, they really like running, they really like marathons. So a few years later, I decided to run a half marathon, which is 21 kilometers. And I was too lazy to prepare, so I started preparing, and then again, like daily routine and laziness took the place. So like few weeks before the marathon, I decided, like, should I drop or should I just do it? And I decided nobody is actually pushing me or forcing me to do it by the end. Let's try it out, see how many kilometers I would run, and then I can drop anytime while I'm on a race. So I started, the event was extremely exciting. There were so many people cheering you, just leaving their homes and giving you water for free. And the kids, they prepared the posters and everybody were clapping and saying how good you are. And that was a spirit. And there were other people around me, like on the wheelchairs, people in their 70s, pregnant women and very heavy pregnant women, like on the 7th or 8th month. And I felt like I am in my early 30s at that time. How can I dare to quit in the middle of the race? So I did it 21 kilometers without preparation. So definitely I didn't run all of them. I half ran, I maybe ran like 12, and then I got tired. The rest I walked, but still I managed it on time. Yes, I was quite late, but still it was on time. I got a medal, and I understood how much the support means. The support of the team, I assumed all people who were running with me were like a team, and also like cheering people outside of the team, people who woke up in the mornings, who prepared the posters, who prepared the water for us, and just were standing there for a few hours to clap. And they didn't know us. They just appreciated our effort. So
Right.
that was my biggest takeaway from the marathon.
Cool. So with that, we will jump into our topic of the day. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. So we
Cool.
have 12 people so far, and I think we can jump into migration.
Sure. No, I mean, the more the better. But again, this is a start. So again, everybody who's joined us, thank you. Everybody's trying to join us. Yeah, please do. So what I want to share in the start, again, this is a project, or I would say more a program, which I ran. And this is the migration to the cloud, which is the experience I'm going to share about, you know. And this is all about embracing change, right? And this happened at a time a little early on, when today cloud migrations are much more faster, easier. There are different tools, there are different techniques, there's more maturity in the process. This was a time of this a few years early on where it was not as mature as it is today, right? Now, the concept I'm trying to talk here is something each of us who is on the phone can go in and definitely start using it in any shape or form on the work you're going to do on a daily basis, right? So this is a large customer. Again, as I mentioned, it's a pretty large customer. They have over 600 plus US stores. Now, there's one particular application here which they were using to forecast their demand, seasonal demand, and all that. That is called the demand DCA, we call it at the time. Now, this is with a company I was working with called Teradata at the time, so they had this piece. So this application, they wanted to move it to the cloud. And because it is in the early days of the cloud deployment, the challenges which we faced were, definitely the resource experience was limited. You didn't have so many cloud certified or cloud literate folks, right? There were not many on-prem to cloud migrations that were done. So there were processes and steps which we had to build, create, come up with. For example, the sizing of the S2 buckets, and this is AWS, of course, the sizing of the buckets, how we do it, the whole process, then the security, how much can one which part of the, the applications we could access, how do you, migrate within. So these were all things that were new things that were all, all to be, still to be mature. Now, the challenge, because of that, there was definitely a concern, and the risk was perceived to be high for failure, right? And what we did here was more try and manage the risk. And in this particular case, around the time, as I mentioned, I'm a lifelong student. I keep reading stuff, studying stuff, I came across something called scenario analysis, and this was the paper which I read at the time was based off, I think, a gentleman called Pierre Walk, I forget his last name. He's like the father of scenario analysis. So he used this concept with a company called Shell Oil Company, which many of you are aware of. And they have used it with high success rates. So I like the idea. I used that concept. And what we did was, when I had the project kickoff, what I did was use this concept with the stakeholders And we said, hey, let us look at the scenario that we have finished the project. And let us look at one scenario of success, we are all happy. But let us look at the other scenario where, of course, we are not successful. Let's figure out why, because that's when we have to explain to the stakeholders, explain to the leadership, explain to the management as to what happened. And because of that, right? And the idea of that, of course, was to reduce the risk and improve the probability of success. So when we did this analysis, we looked at the change management side of it. We looked at the resourcing side of it. We looked at the approval side. For example, if there is a particular application, which is in this case the DCA, that is a certain piece of it moving, and somebody has to approve it. What happens if that person is not available? What happens if we need it to be done quicker? So we looked at all that, mapped the time. So in this case, as I mentioned, because when we mapped the time, we were able to, in a way, figure out which pieces were potential risks of failure, and then work with the management, work with the stakeholders to find mitigation strategies, right? What to do if that happened. So even before we started the project, we had, for example, many a company, there's a change management process where it is a multiple week-long process, right? From the time you put in your request to the time it's approved. So in this particular case, because they wanted it faster, we asked for a special request that we will have one change control, but we will put in the request as we go along. So we are not starting the scale or starting that from like every single time we are restarting it. So some of these kind of decisions were looked at. Now, what happened because of that was, as I said, we had we had the mitigation plan, we knew what to do, we had a lot of approvals in place, which in turn, improved the probability of success. So that's what happened. Looked at the scenarios, looked at what end games we wanted, and we had a successful project. Now, in this particular case, because of what we did, we came with 20% less time than we had planned. Otherwise, I'm sure we may have had some unknowns. Now, not to say we didn't have surprises, but we were able to manage it. We were able to attack it in a much better fashion. Of course, because this is a retail customer, and in the US, this was around the Thanksgiving Day sale, so they had a tight timeline. So we were able to finish it so that we could use this application in time for the holiday season. Of course, net, all this adds up to is an improved customer satisfaction, which definitely is a big deal, which gave us more work at that point. So this is the experience I shared. Now I'm open up for any questions. Aina, if you have anything to ask, please.
Yes, thank you, John. I have my question, but I will keep it to the end in case someone else have it. So guys, feel free to use the comment chat or write it in private to myself or John. But meanwhile, I have one question for you, John, which is, how did migrating to the cloud change the way your team operates on a day-to-day basis?
Because of this, well, in this, because again, most of the work was project-related work, the migration to cloud per se, I would say, would have had an impact in terms of not the team's work, but I think more overall with the expenditure in this case. In this, I think the capex or the opex was a much better fit, was manageable. From a team's perspective, again, I wouldn't say it had a major change in the way they worked, because it was the same application, but now it's housed in a different location. So that way, this was more like it's there more. There is no downtime, so to speak, and the overall cost structure was different. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I don't think I don't remember it impacting the team in particular.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, let's see what the person will reply to us. I don't have any questions from the audience so far, so
Okay.
I will ask you my question, which is, Tom, can you share how the cloud migration has influenced your organization's approach to innovation and agility?
So in this case, yes, the agility part, I agree, and the innovation part also, because now you're able to maybe, in this particular case, it's more the agility part, because it's in the cloud. You have, I would say, better. Otherwise, each time, let's say, for example, what did I do? Did I? Yeah. So each time, for example, we had to, like do any updates or anything, the system had to be taken down. In this particular case, it was more better uptime in terms of, the system being there. From innovation perspective, I don't think I have a good answer for the innovation part. Again, I'm looking at this particular application, right? I'm not looking at the cloud as a whole. Right. For this particular application, I'm not sure there was any innovation per se, but it was more the agility part that was more applicable.
Thank you, Tom. I see one question on the chat from Kumar. Have you also faced any cultural reluctance? How have you managed that?
Cultural outcomes?
Reluctance, sorry.
Well, again, yes, and so that is a very good question there, Kumar, because yes, there was initially, I would say, some hesitation. And when we looked at the analysis as I said, when we looked at scenario analysis, one of the activities, that activity helped some of the people, understand the whole cloud experience better for this particular application. So we were able to quell their fears. So that's why we didn't have too much of a problem as we went along. Now, but coming back to your question, though, I can think of it a different way. If you're looking at a large scale migration piece, I would say, I mean, again, not only me, what I have found also, and you'll see everywhere, start with an application that is small, start with an application that may have less number of users, so that you can, first thing, you have a better chance of success. You are able to mitigate it well, like a smaller application, and you may not have that many people complaining. So I would say start small, and then with that experience, build onto the other applications. Okay, thank you, Kumar.
Thank you, John. And no more questions so far. So the question from me, John, it was a very interesting experience and amazing journey. And looking back, is it something what you would do differently, and maybe why?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the migration, I would do it differently in the sense. So now that having done a few of these things, what I would like to do is like a journey mapping in addition to doing a scenario analysis. In the sense, because one of the things which I have found personally is many a times when you talk of these large scale projects, once it goes above a certain dollar number, there is always somebody's job at stake, or somebody has some risk in person, right? So the idea for us as program managers and project managers is to help them with the certainty of the end result. So what I would do differently, and I have done this after this experience, was going in with the team and map the journey, like it's a journey mapping, right? That way, and then of course, we use Agile and we use Scrum, and show some interim milestone-based, progress, so that if I'm the sponsor, I know what I'm getting at each point in time. So in my mind, there is a bridge, there's a map, and then we have worked through this analysis, and there is more certainty of success. So that's what I would do differently.
Thank you, Tom. And when I asked this question, I thought maybe I should have asked about the main challenges for us, because you touched challenges right now, but I just want to emphasize, so like kind of to have a structure. So what were the challenges there?
Yeah. Was it a question?
Yes, that was a question. What are the main challenges during this project?
No, again, during this project, as I said, the challenges were, the resource. I would say at that time, the skill level of the resources. People who knew enough about all these S3 buckets and how these things function. That was one of the challenge at the time, right? And of course, there was another challenge. This particular customer was going through a little bit of a realignment in terms of, their business at that time. Was going to go through a bankruptcy and such, but even then, this particular project was not shelved. So trying to get funding, trying to get attention in that turmoil needed a lot of, the hand holding and this and that. So that was one of the challenges, right? And then those were like kind of the two main challenges. And of course, most of the others, because we worked through the scenario planning thing, the typical challenges of change control, change management, these were all already looked at as potential issues, which we had a mitigation plan. So thankfully, as I said, the number of challenges we had to deal with was less as compared to, if we had not done these.
Thank you, Tom. So we have 3 more questions on the chats from the audience, 4 already. And I will start with Akin because it also relates to the challenges. I asked like a general question about the challenges. Akin is asking specifically, what challenges did you face with data and legacy software and middleware solutions whilst migrating to the cloud?
So again, this was a very specialized application. So, this, because it was a specialized application, we already had, we didn't have a challenge in terms of data not being readable or such. But what we had the challenge was the sizing. I think in this particular, if I remember, we had an issue because I think the size, what we had in terms of the what was that tool? The S3 bucket size to migrate. They have a particular tool, a particular thing they used to call it. I don't remember now. But the size of it, when we sized it, we had to actually go, I think, 4 times larger. So that was one big challenge which we faced, which thankfully we were able to overcome. So that was one thing I'm able to recollect right off the bat.
Thank you, Tom. So moving to Kumar's question, which is, have you got such experience? Implementation of one application may lead another application, which might difficult to get approval from management.
I didn't catch that fully. Can you please repeat that, Aina?
I think, Kumar, if you can address it verbally, would be better.
Sorry. So in my experience, I led a business transformation program and also implemented few applications while working. So what I observed when I implemented one application, that led to the another application implementation required by the client, internal and external. I'm talking the customer as well. And then when I reached out to the management, they said, no, we don't have any budget. How we could do it? And then what I perceived that the customer has not realized the full benefit value they wanted to have because of the another application they wanted to have, even requirement they shared. So that's why I wanted from your experience, because you led some kind of transformation project.
Yeah, so the advantage, which I think I would say I had an advantage, because I worked with a company where our business was, putting in whole systems, right, or big projects. So one of the things we had done, we would be, to your point, in a way analyzing the whole environment, right? So in that particular case, this is within the company, right? So most of the time we would have a full view of what is involved in the particular project or a particular engagement, so that, to your point, if there is any, like, what do you call the impact analysis? So anything outside, like most of the applications were included, right? But like if you're talking of something outside, like if I'm an organization, there's another organization, and that is the link. That experience, I would say, I have not had, where somebody else's applications are dependent on ours. But most of the time, I think in our case, is because it's all turnkey, or we would do large scale. So usually, like, the risk of some of the applications being left off was, like, I'm not sure I remember any place we had that problem, Kumar. But I agree with you, if that is not taken into consideration, then the full benefit realization would be a problem, because there is a little piece there where you're not able to get the benefit.
Understood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
So, I can share one experience when I was a pharmaceutical company. So there was one CRM that was just especially for the commercial colleagues, and one for the medical colleagues, and both are working in Salesforce, but application is different. One is P4RX, that is for commercial colleagues, and one made for the medical colleagues. But there is a privacy concern, so that's why the medical colleagues can see the information what commercial colleagues see it relevant, but even the medical, some of the information relevant for the commercial colleague, but they can't see it. So based on that, we approach to management, we ask for the different software. So, and then again, after 6 months, we had to implement another application. just catering those requirements from the that commercial colleagues, because they need those information.
Right, but how long ago was this issue of yours? I mean, was it some time back, or is it recent, this experience?
It's yeah, it's a recent experience I'm talking about. So I worked on the Pfizer project for last 2 years, and then solving this part, it took around, I would say, the 1 year, just
Yes, I
bringing the another application.
I
Two
can
applications already there. Yeah.
yes, I can empathize with it because I know of colleagues and friends who have worked in the pharmacy and life sciences space, but this is a problem where more on the MDM or more on the data governance side of it, not migrating it, but again saying I'm on a different business, you're on a different, we see the same thing but different parts of the information. I understand what you're saying. And it takes a long time just because of the regulatory process, just because of the governance process in those industries. This takes a long time, I think.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something that's solved quickly. But that's a very good point, and thank you for sharing that experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Kumar, for speaking up. And we have a next question from Gaurav. Were there any specific metrics that you used to measure the benefits of cloud migration?
Wow. Well, the straight answer is no. I would say because I did the project, I moved on. So because again, look, I worked, my thing was more outside in. I come into a company, do the project, and I move on. Honestly, I didn't go back to inquire about the efficiency gained. But that is a follow-on question. If I was going back to the same client, I would have definitely asked it at a later time, but I didn't. In this case, we didn't have that metric, Gaurav.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Mhm.
So the last question for now from Rose. Older systems tend to have a fair amount of technical debt. How does this play a role in the migration to the cloud?
Wow, that is a very important, interesting question. So that is, again, I think initially when we started off, and I think our title was transformation, right? So again, I'll just take it away from the migration to the cloud for a minute, because now we'll talk, like a lot of these companies talk about AI and Gen AI and all that, right? So my point is, a lot of this legacy, what he talked of, is our systems that need to be brought into maybe newer technology or newer, newer technology, or so that would be like a first step before we can move to the cloud, or even to go the next step. And the reason I ask the next step is because even with the AI, Gen AI talking, there's a lot of basic, this legacy kind of work still to be done. To answer your question, the challenge there is to identify what they are, and then definitely move them to the different technologies which could be more suitable for migration to the cloud. But mind you, one word of caution here is not every application or not every system or everything is needed or needs to be in the cloud, right? So sometimes maybe some things are better off where they are. That's also possible. So that would be also a way to think about it. And I hope I answered your question, Rose, or in a direction to it.
Yes, thank you very much. You did. Great answer.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, again, just to add to that, right? It's not that one size will fit all. So it all, as I say, as a consultant, it depends. All right, cool. Now, thank you. Thank you for, asking those questions. It's also jogging in some of my old memories and stuff, which I may not have thought about too. So I really appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, brilliant question, guys. And I think, Tom, we can move on to the next case you prepared for us.
Sure. Again, thank you again. We'll move on to the next case. I think that is, yes, here. Now, the next case, again, this is a, work I did, for a company. Again, I use the word healthcare services for at-risk individuals. So this is like a kind of a nonprofit at the time. So the idea was they would provide healthcare services, and this is pretty large for its size. And the key here, well, this is for mostly disadvantaged people, right? So who didn't have insurance, who didn't have healthcare, that was this company about. Now, again, this, I call it as a turnaround, because when I went in at the time, I was brought in because they had some challenges, because we are not finishing, like there were certain timelines we needed to meet. And of course, to my luck, when I went in, they changed the whole project to a fixed price project. And I was so happy. So I went in there, and with my, again, as I say, when I went in, one thing I will acknowledge, guys, and I will quote Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger here, who says he's not a self-made man. And I like that, because none of us are self-made. The success for a program, success for a project is a teamwork. It is not one person. Yes, I may be the person doing the presentations, talking all the good stuff, but it is the team that rallied around me, who supported me, which helped with this. You know, I had a very great offshore team. I had very great architects. I had beautiful, lovely technical teams, which helped me, because all I had was an idea, and they helped me, make it happen, right? So what I did here was, again, as I keep saying, I'm a lifelong learner. I came in here and I found that the customer was pretty dissatisfied, right? And of course, they handed me a fixed price, and they handed me a fixed price because we had overrun, and they said, well, that's it. We can only give you this much, guys. Thank you very much. So I had to come in. And the question that were asked me was, Tom, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I said, what? I said, I don't know. Okay, so I showed up. The customer, I'm sitting in front of the stakeholders and the sponsor, and they're saying, what are you going to do, Tom? Are you going to change anything? I said, no, I'm not going to change anything. And they're like, how do you plan to change the trajectory? I said, well, give me a few days, right? So I come in, I talk to the team, try to understand what the issues are. And then, because of the dissatisfaction, I thought it's a good idea for me to understand, what is it to help you? In this case, it is the developers who are working with me, the customer stakeholders, all the, what is it I can help you, right? That will make my life easy. And looked around that, and then adapted this, as I said, the concept. Then the reason I say adapted, because design thinking is a tool, is a concept you can use for product management and all that. I like the concepts. I used that, mixed it with iterative project management, mixed it with Scrum and all that. The whole idea was, as I mentioned, I showed them the end to end. What I mean is, here is where we're starting, here is the end. These are the milestones. And I definitely use kind of the risk management piece I talked earlier. And I said, but I want to model this based on what each of us needs. Now, what I want to talk here anyway, so long story short, when I did that, that helped gain trust, that helped reset expectations. And the first piece of it took me about, I would say, about 3 months to complete. But once I had that model in place, within the next 3 months, I completed the project, right? The whole project was completed within 6 months. Of course, the time given to me was about 5 months. But the point, what I want to talk here is not that. What I want to talk here is how I adapted it for one specific piece of work, which helped me reduce the time overall, right? So as I'm working with people, and there's a whole lot. Nowadays, we are all remote. Back in the day, we were on site. So building trust was very easy. I would call lunch, I'd have lunch and learns. I would do a lot of other stuff, right? So the case I want to talk about here is, as we were developing things, and as I am giving my packages or code, so to speak, the cycle time for them to approve that was about, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks. And because the fixed price project, I only have about 5 months to finish. This 3 to 4 weeks for me was a problem. And I had, I think, 4 code drops. So that is a long time. So what I did was I worked with the team, especially my developers and the customers, folks who are accepting the code, and worked out. I said, what is it I can do to make your life easy? And this gentleman and then his team were working, and they were overworked. He said, Tom, if you can help me reduce this time for my approval process, it'll be great. I said, okay, what can we do? So we came up with, I think, about 18 or 19 list of things, which included naming conventions, included using capitals, using all of it, right? So we had this whole code package ready, and I said, okay, anytime I give things, we will have checked all these items, and you, Mr. Customer, pick at random 5 or 6 and check it. If those 5 or 6 pass, just let's move on. So yes, it was reluctant, but we tried that. So net, we reduced the time, I would say, from about 15 days to give or take 5 days, plus minus, right? So that overall time we reduced, which definitely had a downstream impact on the whole timeline. So we looked at it from the person who was trying to approve the things and who was kind of overworked, and we helped that, and that reduced that. The other piece again here is the technology we were putting in the adoption was having a challenge because this is pretty complex stuff. And what our team didn't realize was that they didn't know enough. So of course, understand, we tried to work with them. We had lunch and learn sessions and all of that. That led to the increased adoption of this technology, right? But the whole idea here was trying to work around what the customer, the user needs is what we tried. Of course, that led to a faster completion, more adoption. And of course, I had to put this last one because that was a problem when we started, that we were not getting paid in time. Again, that is also a metric. I'm sure a lot of us who are project managers, program managers, that is also a metric some of us are scored on. So that is the other improved or unintended. I didn't intend for the payment cycle to happen, but that was a result of everything we did. So that's what I have, and I'll open it up for questions here because I know this is a pretty quick run here.
Yes, so I see one question so far from Mandar. What training and support plans are in place to ensure a smooth transition for end users?
So again, it all depends company to company. So in this particular case, we would have, we had like, this was just the database. So we would have trainings for the DBAs, trainings for the business users, like if you're a BI user, and we at the time, I think, I don't remember what I used. I think we used Tableau or something. We had trainings in Tableau and how to use the programs. And then as a company, we used to have training credits provided. So you could take the credits, you could become a master DBA, or we could, like, if I'm not a technologist, but I had a path to understand technology. So we had different learning paths which you would give. And those are the training credits which were given to the customers to keep up with the changes. So hopefully that answered your question, Mandar.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And we have another one from Ranier. Tom, could you give specific examples of how you combine Scrum and Agile methodologies during the project? I love this question. Surprised, but that is my favorite so far. And if you don't know my background, I'm an Agilist.
So that is an interesting question. So I'll give a little bit of my thought process here, guys, right? And so I called it iterative. And sorry, was it Rainer who asked? Rainer?
Ranier, I think.
Ranier, okay. So the way I think about it, guys, is so essentially, if you talk to Aina, she will tell me that, Tom, what you did is not agile. But what I did, so my thinking is like this, guys. We are human beings. We like to focus on things for a very short period of time, right? So I used that psychological construct so that what I did was initially I planned the project end to end in a waterfall method, right? Then I tried working with the teams to break it into smaller chunks that could progressively, add towards the completion, right? And this, I'm not using backlog. I'm just using regular project management stuff, right? Then my cycle time, or my Scrum, or it was not a 2-week, it was not a 2-week cycle. I had a 5-week cycle, or 4.5, 5-week cycle, yeah. And the idea, and the reason was because we were not able to show progress every 2 weeks. So we came up with it. So what I did was I used waterfall to plan the project. So I had an end-to-end time, then broke it down in a way that we could show progress every 4 to 5 weeks. And then every 2 weeks, we did have a update call, or I called it update to the stakeholders. So we had those touch points. So we were showing progress. So I used the concept using the waterfall, broke it down, and then used the iterative model with the concept of Scrum. And as I said, this whole thing about we all focus on shorter sprints. So I took these 3-4 concepts, compressed it, and then just came up with a way to work. And that's what I did. And I don't know if that helps you with the answer there.
Thank you, Tom.
Mhm.
Yes, it was quite an agile attempt, so I will give you credit for that.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see any other questions so far. So I am curious, maybe you addressed it during the speech, Tom, but I am curious to maybe to emphasize some tactical approaches you took during this transformation.
Yes, I mean, again, the tactical in this case, as I said, since I had to work with rebuilding trust, I did spend, again, because when I say tactical, I did spend a lot of time with the leadership, trying to know them, trying to work with them, a whole bunch of, I would say, lunch and learn sessions. And back at the time, I used to do happy hour. Nowadays, I don't. But my point being, I got to know the team. And this was before COVID, guys. This is way before COVID, right? So I used those usual techniques to know people, to get to know them, to understand the pain points. And those were the technical approaches I used. Plus, as I said, I also tried to understand, like, let's say in this case, Aina, you are the one who's signing off on my milestones. What do you need to know? So I built that into my update process. I built that into my timeline saying, hey, you need to know this beforehand. I don't want to come to you tomorrow and say, I need a milestone signature. You need to know it's happening early on. So that was the updates I was giving. And I basically, I would say, asked most of the stakeholders leadership to be part of those meetings so they knew what was going on. So that is the other approach I used, from a tactic perspective, so that I'm not coming to you for a signature on the day before in this example. Right. So those are the kind of things I used, like I built into the timeline the milestones, most of it. The other thing which I always like is nobody likes surprises. So I liked to give as much information as possible so that you as a stakeholder, you as a user is not surprised with stuff. So those are the few things I've used in terms of tactical approaches to help with this process.
Thank you for pointing this out, Tom. And we have two more questions here. The first one is from Mandar. What lessons learned from previous cloud migration projects do you have, Tom?
Well, again, I think I touched on that early on. Mandar, is, again, to me, like as I mentioned in this particular turnaround experience, right? I think, and even now when I mentor, my project managers and solutions leads, what I tell them is draw a picture of the whole solution, draw an end-to-end of the solution, not the project timeline, of the solution, right? Then one of the big things is everybody on the project, I like to make sure everybody understands why, the big why, Simon Sinek's why. Why are we doing this project, right? And that is something I like to make sure everybody understands. Now, those are the kind of things when we incorporate into most of our work and show them the end-to-end, that definitely helps with some of the buy-in. That helps with reducing the fear of getting this long project done. So those would be some of the lessons learned, which I have used myself, and I use even today with customers.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for asking, Mandar. Yes, it's always good to reiterate, even if we spoke about it at the beginning of the session, maybe someone else has joined. So good summary. Okay, I see a question from Omar. I'm curious to know if the presented cases with measured success indicators have originally been planned with such benefits ahead, or this was simply derived from the outcomes, but not much anticipated. Why am I asking? As a portfolio manager, we do always challenge any demand for change to define the value and promise the benefits ahead.
Yes. So, Omar, that's a good point. So what I'm showing you is in retrospective, but in this particular instance, for that matter, there were other metrics we were tracking in terms of, this was, as I said, so what this project you're looking on is a foundation for the company to be more a data-driven company. That was the general program under which this fell, right? So there were larger metrics which were there, for example, the whole data-driven approach adoption, and I think we also had the ROI. So there are other factors from a PMO perspective that were tracked. But this was more an after the fact, because when I came in, or they brought me in just for a piece of the work, right, at the time, this was that particular piece. So, but yes, there were other metrics, like for example, one of the big things we used to be tracking was the project profitability, which is not here, but which I hit because of the improved payment cycles and all the other stuff, right? Now, because of the adoption technology, there were other related upsells we could do, so I ended up hanging on for a longer time. But yes, I agree with you. These were not something that were planned as part of the general measurements. And I hope that helps.
Thank you, Tom. And we have Aina's question.
Yes.
What is the difference between an agile transformation and a product transformation? Tom, would you like to answer that, or would you?
I will leave it to you. That's your expertise.
Okay, so Nessie, thank you for the question. So let's start with an agile transformation. So when we do agile transformation, we normally talk about change in the organizational methodology, organizational, like cultural mindset, and also focus on adopting the principles of agile methodology across all the teams in the organization and processes. So normally when agile transformation comes, we are doing the shift from traditional like linear approaches to more iterative and incremental model of project management and product development. And normally we have a goal which enhances flexibility and also improve collaboration and deliver value to customers, obviously, and also gathering feedback from the customers to make sure that we are delivering the value. So that is like the view from the agile coaching perspective. The view from the organizations, normally they've heard the buzzword agile and they decided, oh, everybody's doing agile, we are not doing it yet, let's do it, without having like clear understanding why they need agile and here where the problem starts. But again, coming back to your question, Nessie, the difference between agile transformation and product transformation. So to reiterate, the key aspects of agile transformation might be such as a cultural shift, process change, organizational restructuring, and continuous improvement. And for the product transformation, the key aspects I might list is the product strategy revision, meaning that we need to align the product with new market opportunities or customer needs. And again, to do the product transformation, we need to answer the question, why we are doing it, what is wrong with the current product, what our customer wants, so do lots of research from our customers. Another aspect could be the technological innovation, such as AI. Nowadays, everybody's trying to innovate with AI. Also, user experience, like redesigning user experience. And which all of this might lead to the business model change, meaning shifting how our value is delivered and captured, and also moving from one-time sales to, like we call it sometimes, a subscription model. So to give you a summary, agile transformation is about changing how an organization works and think to be more responsive and adaptable. And product transformation may include adaptation of agile methods, but it's centered on evolving the product itself to meet strategic business goals. I hope I answered your question. And I see your comment, Nessie, now. I'm with you. My org needs an agile transformation, but instead we are undergoing a product transformation. Want us to learn how to implement AI without throwing all our people under the bus. Great comment.
Yes. So I think again, I think is it Nikki or Nessie? So again, this is something I would say. I mean, I know I have my LinkedIn, so I may need to change. I have a two-factor authentication. So if anybody, is trying to get in touch with me, this is the email I'll put in here that you need to use, so that you know me. So I'll just put it here. But the point I was trying to make here, Nikki, is I could. So again, please connect with me. This is something which I'm doing now, working on, how to operationalize AI. I could definitely share some ideas with you, which maybe you can use and you can utilize in addition to, whatever you're doing right now. So I'm open to, sharing thoughts. And yeah, so once you connect with me, you will need to use my Hotmail. So definitely, you need to use this email so that you can connect with me. Thank you. And now back to you.
Thank you guys for the questions, and thank you, Tom, for sharing these two personal case studies. So we have 1 minute left. So any final comments, guys? Any final questions? And meanwhile, Tom and I prepared a slide for you, change management checklist. So if you've never done changes, or if you done it, so something to remind yourself while you are into that. So first of all, define the objectives, like what goals and why we are doing that. Also, stakeholder analysis. Don't forget about people around you and who can be affected and who can influence the change. Communication plan, obviously, how we can communicate the change. And I can prepare another webinar on that, on my lessons learned. Training and support structures, monitor and manage resistance, feedback mechanism, review and adopt strategies. And also what many forgets, especially in large organizations, is to celebrate successes. So if you find it valuable, take a screenshot. And if you'd like to have the slides, Tom and I can share it to you. But Tom, thank you very, very much for agreeing to come into my first event in 2024. And everyone else, thank you for your questions, and thank you for staying with us till the end.
Yes, thank you, everyone. This was wonderful. Thank you all for your time. Have a good day wherever you are. And yeah, feel free to connect. I'm open to, conversations. So thank you all.